yo, 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 yo. How y'all feeling? Don't sound like it. Okay, all right, all right, all right. So before we get started, a couple things. The communication cards on your table. Um, if you've already filled one out, you don't got to fill out all the information. Just put your name. Those cards will be collected at the end of service. And next week is our drawing for what? $100 or AirPods. So the more cards you have in the pot, the better your chances of winning. It's a drawing. It is what it is. So second thing, reminder for mission trippers, we're receiving more donations this Saturday from 12 to 4, this Sunday from 1 to 3, and the garage show will be April 8th through the 10th. If you're still interested in the mission trip, there's limited spots. I got 45 spots. Hit me up later. I'll get you some paperwork. And we're about to go to Colorado, baby. So the mountains. So, okay. Tonight's topic, as you know, if you've been paying attention at all, is suicide. Now, rather than me Google a bunch of stuff or statistics or pretend like I know what I'm talking about, we brought in somebody who is very, very knowledgeable in this topic. So I think it's a great opportunity for you guys to learn some real information about this topic and really make it applicable in your lives and in your lives of your friends. So I'm not going to give her the introduction because she's going to give it to you, a little background. But I want you to lean in and give your utmost respect and attention to Miss Megan as she comes up. Give her a hand.
Okay, so one, it's kind of legit that the video he just did ended with hope in the dark. That's a very meaningful word in my world. It's actually a tattoo I have. So anyways, because it's a lot of what we're going to talk about tonight. Suicide, the word, there are a lot of different meanings. So today we're going to talk a little bit about what it means, why does it exist, who is suicidal, things like that, and then empowering you as you're sitting here as a student. You guys live this and see it daily, and so hopefully as we kind of talk, there might be some questions that you're going to have, and so you're going to have time at the end to talk with your table or come find me afterwards. So, but before I ever start any kind of presentation, I always feel like I need to introduce myself. So, because in my opinion, you don't really start respecting somebody until you know who they are. So first is I want you to know who I am. My name's Megan Bryant, and you can go to the next slide. I don't know if there's someone back there. There we go. My name's Megan, and I currently, if you look at my job, you might think, what is she even talking about suicide? I'm the director of student engagement at Rose State College. So seniors and juniors, if you need help with college, come see me also. But that has not been my role throughout my career and not going to be my role in the future. I grew up in Midwest City, so I'm from this area. Went to Midwest City High School. My dad's a youth pastor. My brother's a pastor and a worship pastor also. So I grew up in the church. That being said, what we're going to talk about tonight with suicide or self-harm, suicidal ideation, that's not a topic that the myth says you're only suicidal if you're from broken homes, if you don't come from good families, or, they kind of have all these myths, and that's not true. And so we'll kind of talk a little bit about that, but, and then also, I was a counselor. I became a teacher, went to UCO, became a teacher, taught in Middell. I taught at Midwest City High School, and then I became a school counselor at Carl Albert High School. I missed a lot of you by just a few years. I was a school counselor at Carl Albert High School, and then worked for the district office. So some of you I might have done stuff with if you're a Carl Albert High School student, maybe when you were at the middle school or something like that. But what I honestly felt God calling me was to be back with students. So that's where I landed in my role. Now I work with college kids. But in doing that, God's called me to really go back and finish counseling. So I'm actually going back and finishing my LPC. I'm in school right now. Counseling the Abused is a class I have to go take a test in later. So, but anyway, so that's what I do. And then my family personally, my husband's a firefighter. And so he sees what we're going to talk about a lot tonight, all the time. He runs on suicides in Midwest City probably once every other tour. Which is a shift that he has. And so it's very prevalent in our community. And so I can kind of see it from firsthand from him. And then I have a middle school daughter, some of you might know. She's in 7th grade, and then I have a 7-year-old. So that's kind of who I am. And so now we're just going to go ahead and hop right in. So first off, I want us to make sure the words that I'm using, you understand what those words are. Okay, so the next slide, there are kind of 3 main points, 3 kind of definitions. Okay, so first off is you'll hear sometimes people use the word suicidal ideation. Okay, another word is suicide. And then the third one doesn't really fall in the suicide category, but I always feel like it needs to be talked about during this conversation because of the nature of self-harm. And so I'm going to break all of these down. So when we talk about them, you understand what we're talking about. Okay, so we kind of all have the same definition. I was a teacher, so I feel like we all have to have the same definition. Okay, so the next slide. So suicidal ideation is where you're thinking about suicide. Maybe it's just the idea of suicide. Maybe you have a plan. Maybe you've just had those moments where, or a friend has had those moments where they think about it. They may or may not have a plan. They may or may not have discussed it with anyone, or sometimes it's just in their head. So suicidal ideation is just the thought of suicide, okay? That's the fancy term of thinking about suicide, okay? Then suicide is the actual act, okay? So suicide is actually taking one's life. It's actually the completion. There's kind of a gray area in the middle where sometimes people with suicidal ideation attempt, but they don't complete, okay? So complete is final. That's final. And I'm going to be very blunt tonight and not sugarcoat things, okay, you guys? Because you guys are middle school and high schoolers, and we need to make sure we understand this concept. The third one is self-harm, okay? Self-harm is not, and I need everyone to understand me because this is a myth that's out there. A lot of people think if you are self-harming, you're attempting suicide, and that is not the case, okay? Self-harm, there's a lot of reasons that self-harm, which is harming yourself, that might be cutting, that might be choking yourself, that might be, I had a student one time scratch herself a lot with safety pins. So it wasn't really cutting, but it was similar, scraping. So there's a lot of different versions of self-harm. So it's just you're harming your body, okay? I struggled with an eating disorder all until college. That honestly in my brain is a form of self-harm. I was harming my body because I hated it so much. So that's kind of self-harm is a broad definition. But what I need you to understand is self-harm is still a cry for help. So everything we talk about tonight with what do I do if a friend of mine tells me that they want to they're wanting to hurt themselves and take their life, the same actions and the things that we talk about still apply if you have a friend that's harming themselves. Because what happens is sometimes self-harm can become accidental suicides. They maybe didn't mean to, but they cut just right at a spot where they ended up bleeding out or something along those lines. Okay, so anything, if a friend is self-harming, that is still in the topic of what we're talking about tonight of getting them help. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about what maybe each of those mean. Okay, so go to the next slide. Okay, so suicidal ideation. We're not going to spend a lot of time on facts because my prayer tonight is that you are going to walk away with action steps, that you are going to see that God is calling each of you to go and be a light for him in this dark world, hope in the darkness. Each of you, he has called you to do that. And so I don't want to harp as much on this, but I do want you to understand this is real. And the reason I'm going to kind of pause for a second and tell you this. When I was a counselor at Carl Albert High School, I went and got my school counseling degree, and I thought, I'm going to be the best dang counselor Carl Albert High School has ever seen. I'm going to be the funnest. It's going to be great. A month into being a school counselor, and this was just in 2012. This is not that long ago, okay? Within the first month of school, we had a student at Carl Albert High School take their life. And as a school counselor, I had no idea what I was doing. We had 2 brand new counselors. Miss Worth and I were brand new. And we were just trying to keep our head above water. We didn't know how to help our students. Sadly, it was a student that didn't have a large core group of friends. So we mainly just mentored and worked with a small group of students. But we were just keeping our head above water. And we thought, okay, we got through that. And then about a month later, we had a parent suicide. A student at Carl Albert's parent took their life. And when you grow up in a community like Midwest City, you end up sometimes in situations, and I actually was the one who had to tell these 3 students what their parent had done. And guys, that's not anything that I ever trained for. And so what I learned, and then about 2 or 3 months later, there was another relative suicide. And you guys, it was hard. It was a dark time. I felt like Satan was really attacking Carl Albert High School, if I'm being honest. And so it really gave a passion in my life to realize that you guys are struggling and seeing this all the time. And I don't think we as adults in the church sometimes understand that. And so what we're going to talk about tonight, hopefully, is a different spin on what do you do with, what do you do, okay? So each day on average, 3,703 attempts by students just in the high school. You guys, when I was working in Middle, I'm going to be honest with you, our numbers exploded in grades 5 through 8. I was the one who did all the suicide prevention in all 15,000 Middle students. And 5th through 8th grade is where our numbers had tripled more than middle or high school, or more than high school, I mean. So if you were to add in maybe grades 6, 7, and 8, that number would probably be double, okay, for our community. 4 out of 10 to attempt suicide. They gave warning signs. You guys, people are hurting. They need hope. And so that is why we're going to talk more. Okay, next slide. And so suicide. You guys, and this is what's kind of, confusing to me. More teenagers and young adults die from suicide than all of those things listed. But you know what? You're required in school to talk about AIDS. That's a requirement in your education. Do you know what's not a requirement in your education? Suicide prevention. Your schools sometimes just do it to be good people and good counselors and schools, but it's not a requirement. Okay, next slide. And then suicide's the second leading cause of death. Okay, so I'm going to kind of skip through these because I want to get to the next slide. And also I want you to understand, boys and girls both commit suicide. Okay, I will say statistics show males complete more than females, but females attempt more than males. And then in Oklahoma, you guys, this statistic was in 2007, and I think we've jumped to 9th in the nation for our suicide rate. We're 9th from 2017. So so I already changed that slide. So anyways, you guys, suicide is a very prevalent topic in Oklahoma. It's a big topic in our community. So next slide. Okay, so why? Okay, we look at suicide, and like I said at the beginning, we think it's kids who just don't have people that love them, adults that just have nothing to live for. There are a lot of reasons, and these are only 4. There are exponential reasons, but I'm just kind of covering. A lot of times it's mental health, sometimes it's depression, and people that are suicidal, students that are suicidal, adults that are suicidal need help. They need to talk to somebody, and that is healthy. I've seen a counselor before. Impulsivity, and what that means is it's just reactionary. You guys, your brain as students does not develop till you're 25. So some of your leaders in here are sitting here leading you, and their brain isn't even developed, okay? So think about that when they're like leading you, okay? My brain, I know you don't realize this, but my brain developed a few years ago. Okay, not that many. Substance abuse. You guys know this. Drugs, alcohol, start way young, okay? Sometimes it comes from that. You just get in this hole and you don't know how to get out of it because it's an addiction. But the main one, and like I said, there's 50 million other reasons. Everybody is different. Their situations are different. But the one I want to talk about tonight that you have, that the Lord has given you opportunities, because a lot of times students, we can't fix, quote unquote, or we can't, sometimes aren't, have the tools to attack some of the top ones. But the one you can do is disconnection. Okay? That is a reason a lot of times students end up either thinking about or taking their life. So, what is disconnection? Okay? So, let's go to the next slide. So, disconnection, guys, disconnection, you guys see it every single day at your school. If you don't go to school, at church, is for a variety of reasons. I feel disconnected because I feel judged. I'm 5'10". I'm a tall girl. I feel judged a lot when I'm like towering people. Okay, that's an insecurity I have. I feel disconnected sometimes. Insecurities, cliques, perfection, this idea that you have to live up to this idea that you're perfect and you've got to get really good ACT score and SAT score and you've got to look the part and play the instrument and do all the things. Comparison, I don't have stuff like that. So I'm not good enough. So I can't connect with those people. I don't have that kind of money. I don't have whatever it is. And social media we'll talk about in just a second. Okay, next. And so the thing is that all of these statements are things a lot of times we feel when we're disconnected. Okay, I'm the only one going through this. I feel all alone. Okay, and some of you in this room might have, I'm going to be honest, there's probably adults in this room, we've felt this before, right? But the Lord puts each one of us in people's lives to go and watch out when someone is feeling disconnected, okay? The next thing, next slide, is there's disconnection in the church too. You guys, when people come in the door on Wednesday night, just like he said, it's a battleground here. Satan is trying to attack and make someone feel like they shouldn't be here. They're not good enough. They don't go to school, so I can't be in that group. I can't go to that table. But that's where the Lord puts you in their life to pull them in, get to know them, go greet them, go meet them. That's why you have so many adults in this room who are investing in your lives. Okay, next. We can't not talk about social media, okay? You guys, this was a fact that I was blown away by when I heard it a few years ago. Your generation, I know it surprises you, I'm not Generation Z, but your generation is the first generation to not know before social media, okay? Now, you might not have social media. My daughter doesn't have social media because of the things that I've experienced in my job, but she will always remember as a baby me putting her on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, okay? So that is something, and we can go to the next one because I want to kind of rush through these next few, is social media feeds a sense of just this false sense of connection. You may feel like you have tons of friends, but in reality, you maybe only have one or two. And so when you see on social media everyone's out having fun, guess what? That makes you feel like if you're at home and you weren't invited. It's that disconnection. Social media feeds disconnection. Okay, next slide. And I want to mainly just hit on this last one is suicide is glamorized a lot of times on social media. You guys, if you have never watched 13 Reasons Why, I am telling you right now, do not ever watch it. Okay? One, I will never say social media causes or causes suicide. Okay? Because if it's already, and this is a myth, I'm throwing some myths out to you, just because you talk about suicide does not mean that you're putting that in somebody's brain. Okay? That's a myth. So that's why we're talking about this, because it's healthy to talk about it. But there are shows that glamorize it. There was a show, 13 Reasons, that very much so glamorized it. It gave this idea that even though the person committed suicide, they were able to come back through these tapes and rectify things in people's lives. That's not true. And also in that movie, or in that series, it was a very serene and happy suicide. My husband has run on, I don't know if I would say hundreds, but probably close to suicide attempts, and it is not as glamorized as social media tries to make it out. And so we've got to make sure we understand the reality that it is a final thing, okay? Okay, next. Okay, so what can we do? This is where we're going to rush through this last 5 minutes, okay? But this is where you're going to walk away and think and have some action things. What can I do? What can each of you do in your lives to help your friends? Because here's what I'm going to tell you. There's every single suicide prevention training that you can go to, that your school can give you. But what it comes down to is this: it's connection. Because if I am only behind my phone and I'm not getting to know somebody, if Kendra and I are friends, I don't know where Kendra's at, but okay, so Kendra and I are friends. I can tell because Kendra and I spend time together. We have face-to-face conversations. I can tell when she is having a crap day. And so I can talk to her and have that connection. If I don't connect with her, though, I don't know if she's hurting. And so we have to connect. So that's one way, is we connect with people. Talk to them, get to know them. Okay, the next thing is empathy. Okay, does anyone know what empathy means? Okay, I'm going to tell you a definition of empathy, and it's my favorite topic because it's something we have to learn. Okay, empathy, sympathy, and there's this cartoon thing that I love to watch, but that it's like explains it a little bit better. But sympathy is like if your friend is down in a hole, they're in a dark place. Sympathy is like sitting at the top of the hole saying, hey, you want a sandwich? Like, you're going to be fine. Let me buy you a Starbucks. It's great. You're going to get out of the hole soon. Are those bad things? No. But empathy is getting in the hole and sitting with him and saying, I'm going to walk through this with you. I love you. Let's figure out what to do. I don't know what you're going through, but I will walk with you. Okay? That is what you can do with your friends that are hurting. Okay? Is have empathy, is walk with them. Not judge them if they come back because they did attempt. Love them when they return. Okay? Next thing. Okay? So God calls us to have a Christ-centered look on how we see people. See people in his eyes. Not just, hey, I'm supposed to like you, but really love because he wants us to love others. Okay? And so I'm going to hurry. Okay, next one real fast. Okay, there are scripture after scripture after scripture that talks about how we have to be in connection with other people. Iron sharpens iron. You can go to the next slide. This talks about, like, literally, if I am back to back with somebody and Satan is attacking, guess what? I am going to, in that battle that he was talking about up here, we are going to fight this together. God calls us to do that. And so we've got to say, okay, you can go to the next slide. So he calls us to have that lens. And so he wants us to connect with others. Guys, that's the greatest commission, is to go. Tell people about him. Give people that hope that he has. Okay, next slide. That's all. Okay. I think they maybe not transferred, so I'm going to give you guys. So now I'm just going to talk about signs, okay, really fast. Okay, so signs. Here are some signs. Yes. Okay, and you're gonna get to talk a lot at your table, and I'm just gonna list some signs to you, okay? Because you might say, well, how do I know if my friend is suicidal or maybe thinking about it, okay? So here are some things. If you have friends pulling away from you, maybe you guys used to hang out a lot and they're pulling away. Sometimes that's a sign, okay? They're giving their things away. Carl Albert just won a football, right? Championship. If someone's like, you know what? I really want you to have this just because it's special to me. That person has worked hard for that ring. So why are they giving it away? That should be a red flag, okay? Another thing is making comments. And this is where I think a lot of times as students, you'll get this like in a text message. I just wish I wasn't here anymore. It doesn't matter anyways. Why should it matter? That's a red flag sign, okay? Another is changing in their habits or personality. Maybe they're super energetic and they've totally pulled away. Or it can be the flip side. They're kind of quiet and then all of a sudden they're like this big personality. Sometimes just a flippin' personality can be that they're crying out for help, okay? And just a couple more. Sudden changes in appearance. Maybe they typically look put together, they showered, hair was done, but and then they just stopped caring. They show up kind of grungy, or the other way. They were kind of grungy, and then all of a sudden, like, something shifted. Sometimes that can be it. Okay, there we go. It's up there. And then a lot of times is academic performance. It might be a friend that you see that really has tanked in their academics. Sometimes that can be a sign. Okay, I've got like 2 minutes because I really should have ended 2 minutes ago. Okay. So there are a lot of signs. So here is what, these are kind of the what can you do? Because you guys, if we're connecting with people, we're going to see some of those signs. We're going to see when a friend of ours is hurting. So what do I do? Well, first off, you watch for those signs and you speak up. Here is what I want everyone to look me in the eye and understand. If a friend of yours says anything that gives you a red flag, and you ask them, because blanketly ask them, are you thinking about hurting yourself? Because I'm really worried about you. Okay? Because here, and then if you were to then at that point speak up and tell an adult, guess what? I would rather somebody be angry with me and still hear than not hear at all. So that's what you need to remember. I would rather be, like when I was a counselor at Carl Albert, I knew that student was going to come back ticked beyond all belief at me because I told their parent and we got them help. But you know what? That means they came back. So do not be scared that they are going to be mad at you, okay? The other is find a trusted adult. A lot of times, you might not know at that moment. You're at home and you get a text message and you don't know what to do. Get your parent involved. Have your parent call that parent. If it's somebody and your parent doesn't know who that is, call your youth pastor. Call if you're as a teacher or a counselor. A lot of times I would get calls, hey, I can't get a hold of this parent. I don't know who they are. The other thing is I want everyone to understand this last big thing. And then you could take a picture of that number right there, okay? But that's a side note, okay? The last thing I want to say is adults in the room and kids in the room. Everybody needs to know that this is something you can do. If there is a friend of yours that texts you and says, I'm going to take my life, and they stop responding to you, you can have an adult call 911 and do what's called a well child check, okay? Or a well adult check, honestly. And so what you do is you say, and you need to get a parent involved or an adult involved, and they will do this. They do it all the time. But you can just say, this person, this is the address, and they will go and just make sure that person is safe. So if you know no information other than maybe an address, they can help figure that out, okay? And then the best thing, like I said, is that suicide number, that number is not just for people that are suicidal. You can call that number if you're worried about your friend and say, hey, these are some signs I've seen. Is this something I should be worried about? And that person can give you tips and ideas. So that's not just for someone that's suicidal. That can be for you if you want to get a friend help. Does that make sense? Okay? So that's why that number is a really good, helpful number. But out of everything, and then I'm going to turn it over to your table so you guys can talk, is I know this was fast, and I know this is a lot of information and a really heavy topic. But what I want you to understand is that, one, you are loved. That there is hope, just like what we talked about. The Lord's reckless love, like he is pouring that over each of you, and he wants you in this life, because Satan's lie is that you are not good enough and you don't really need to be here. You know why he's attacking you? Because God has something pretty dadgum big in front of you for you to go do. And so there could be someone right here that is going to cure cancer or going to save maybe my child's life in the future as a firefighter, or whatever the case may be. The Lord has a plan for each one of you. And Satan is trying to infiltrate your head and your heart and tell you you're not worth it. But I am here to tell you, and every single adult in this room is here to tell you, you are worth it and your friends are worth it. And so everything we talked about, as fast as it was, is that you are loved. And guys, if you have friends that are struggling, if you are struggling, don't be worried that they're going to be mad at you, because they will at least be here. So you always have to get an adult involved. Don't question it and say, should I tell an adult? Because, hey, guess what? That's the Holy Spirit telling you you need to tell an adult. That's not just your gut. Okay? So, that's a very awkward way to end. But I'm just going to say, find opportunities to connect. Because if you are making face-to-face conversations with people and learning about them, you will know. So, I'm going to turn it over to your table. They've got some questions.
Oh, you're fine. Thank you. That slide for everyone, if you follow Catalyst Instagram, it's up on Instagram right now. If you need to take that number down, whatever. Yep. Begin.